Ayo, what's up everybody? Wuthering Waves 2.6 is soon approaching, and with it is coming the opportunity to acquire the latest limited banner character, Augusta. To say I know some of y'all are excited about this character is an understatement. I asked y'all if y'all are more excited for her than Cantarella. Y'all said, of course. I asked more than you know? Y'all said, yeah. I said, what about new bosses, new events, new main quests, new echo sets, new area, and the ability to fly across multiple regions? Y'all said, you know what? That last one sounds pretty promising. But we down bad, Wavy. We down bad. I said, alright, X gon' give it to you. In this video, we're going to be diving into all the things we learned about Augusta over the previous and current patch. But before we dive in, I gotta say, it would be a shame if you couldn't actually get that character, right? What if you were just shy of the astrite needed to pick up that coveted Augusta? Well, that brings me to the collaborator of today's video, LootBar. LootBar offers incredible savings when purchasing in-game currency in a number of games, and this includes Wuthering Waves, offering 21% off the regular price for new users. LootBar is a quick, easy, and secure method. You don't have to worry about someone else logging into your account if you don't want to. After purchase, they offer a secure self-top-up method, which is the one I always choose. So if you need Astrite, check it out. Link in the description. Anyways, without further ado, let's get it. Now, when it comes to Augusta, we get information about her from two main sources, one of which is Lupa. When talking about Augusta, one of the first things Lupa mentions is her title. She is Ephor Augusta, and we learn that the Ephor of Septimon is someone who is the ruler of the region. Ephors wield absolute power, and only the strong are deemed worthy to lead in Septimon. And that's the second thing we learn about Augusta. She is incredibly strong. Rover tells Lupa about our vision of Cardathea facing off against the corrupted Arsenosa. And Lupa responds that Cardi must be really strong because no one has been known to face off against Arsenosa directly, with the exception of Ephor Augusta. So just how powerful is Ephor Augusta? Well, we can't really say with absolute certainty, but we know she's powerful enough to be crowned champion without even having to fight in the Great Aegon. More on that later. In those days, it wasn't even called the Great Aegon. It was called the Bloody Aegon. Lupa tells us that years ago, the Bloody Aegon was a vicious competition where essentially there was a free-for-all battle royale style competition where all the competitors along with hordes of Tacit Discords battled it out until there was only one gladiator left standing. Later, it was Augusta and her predecessor who worked to evolve the Great Aegon into the competition we know it as today. As we saw in Act 5, the Great Aegon is now a 2-on-2 battle where gladiators are free to use their personal echoes in the arena. Augusta celebrates the beauty of teamwork and gladiatorial competition, which is why she gives Rover and Lupa a piece of a single medal she cleaved in two. Of course, Augusta wasn't always Ephor of Septimon, and her string of victories where she was crowned champion actually only occurred 4 years ago. Lupa tells us all about this when we have lunch at Solace Restaurant, which is why, during the quest, Augusta says this: 4 years have passed, and I stand before you once more, not as a gladiator, but as a witness to the start of this grand event. Lupa goes on to tell us that it's only after being crowned champion that she began to work her way up to the Ephor's seat. Decades prior, corruption ran rampant in the upper echelons of Septimontian society. 2 prior Ephors were met with untimely deaths, which is likely why her punishment for Domina Julia was so severe. But keep watching, because it gets deeper than that when it comes to the crimes of Septimontian nobility. While Augusta is a new face in the Ephor's seat, she seems to be well liked by the people. However, based off of what's been revealed so far about the history of Septimon's leadership, I can't help but think that there has to be some hating-ass corrupt government official somewhere just plotting and waiting to take action. By the way, if you guys are enjoying this video so far, be sure to like and share. It really does help me to continue making awesome videos just like this one. Here, in version 2.5, we meet a blind bard named Nestor. Now, I don't know just how trustworthy Nestor is because, man's is giving off heavy Cristofaro vibes. But as of now, we have little reason to not trust his account of events, even if he is Cristofaro. Because while Cristofaro may not have told us everything he knew about Cartathea's past, he didn't lie. It was at least truthful according to his knowledge at the time. Nonetheless, Nestor tells us about Augusta before she rose to power. He tells us that her story is something that he's heard again and again since the dawn of the lament, and that greatness is never found on a story's first page. Augusta was once a girl with no title, no status, and no wealth. The dark tide ravaged her homeland. It's not exactly said where Augusta is from, but wherever it was required a boat to get there. Nestor's recount of her story begins with a young Augusta clenching a sword, standing amidst rubble and ruins. She was surrounded by Septimontian gladiators who stood by to protect her, presumably from tacit discords, and the ruins mentioned were likely the remains of her hometown. These gladiators say that they know what the dark tide did to her home. They fed her and took her to Septimont City because it wasn't safe there, saying that even if you rebuild these walls 1,000 times, they'll never hold against the dark tide. You don't have the strength to stop it. Bring your sword and come with us.
Do you want to come with us?
This event, in those words, would inspire and forever change the trajectory of her life. Realizing that gladiators were a symbol of strength in Septimont, Augusta felt that if she could dominate the arena, maybe she could find the strength she had been looking for. But to be a gladiator, the tournament rules required new contestants to have a mentor. After searching and searching, she eventually finds a retired star gladiator named Cato. Augusta tells Cato about her past, and he's empathetic and all, but he's also like,
but it's still not enough. Not nearly enough.
Basically like, okay now, get out of here, kid. But Augusta was persistent. So Cato was like, all right, I'll tell you what, if you can strike me just one time, I'll train you. So Augusta accepts the duel, but she fails to land a single hit. However, day after day, Augusta keeps coming back to challenge Cato, and she loses every time. By the way, this whole time, Cato is talking mad trash to her, basically saying her skills are garbage. But eventually, one day, just when Augusta was on the verge of collapse, she taps into her anime flashback power-up. She envisions her homeland, the soft sunlight, the great oak leaves. She hears her friends and her parents' laughter. In the next breath, a bone-deep chill engulfs her. Then, she strikes, and it hits. Cato hands Augusta his sword, and he turns to walk away. But she calls his name like, yo, what's up? Cato explains that in Septimont's arena, the victor claims the weapon of the defeated, and says that the sword is yours now. Cato goes on to explain that winning in Septimont's arena is essentially everything here, and that people even calling you by your name is subject to whether you achieve victory. About a month into Augusta's training, she starts looking around at the other gladiators, and they're practicing all these new moves she's never even seen before. So she's thinking to herself, what's good, Coach Cato? Why you got me training with the same moves against a wooden post while everybody else is doing all these special techniques? Nonetheless, she continues her training, never forgetting her purpose, which is to be strong enough to protect others. Anyways, Cato's training regimen with Augusta concludes, and she goes out to seek sponsors. While in the underground arena, she discovers that it wasn't just the dark tide that's responsible for the destruction of her hometown. She learns that the nobles of Septimont also played a role in its downfall. We learn that the dark tide didn't really affect the nobles of Septimont. They just continued their life of luxury, with gladiators serving under them. This whole event was like an auction block where people were bidding on gladiators and escorting them away.
How much is your soul worth?
Eventually, an old school noble approaches Augusta, telling her that she must pass 3 trials in order to proceed further with them. And these were some crazy trials. The first trial was to defeat a ferocious beast in the trial grounds. It was a struggle, but Augusta outsmarted the beast and eventually defeated it. She came back to the nobleman, and he was like, that was hardly a trial anyway. Let's move on to trial number 2. The next was to bring him 100 lives, to prove to him that she's worthy of standing in the arena. Augusta looks at him with disgust, but she continues on. One by one, she defeats gladiator after gladiator, collecting their swords. It was getting to the point where she was running out of worthy challengers. Her last 2 opponents ended up being gladiators of nobility. And as you can imagine, the nobles weren't really happy to see their guys being put to sleep. After defeating all those opponents, the next day, Augusta goes back to Old School Noble to announce that she completed the trial. And again, he downplays her accomplishment and tells her about the 3rd and final trial. The final trial was to face off against Arsinosa, the Lioness of Glory. It was at this point that Augusta realized that Old School Noble never really planned for her to pass the trials in the first place. Augusta accepts the final trial. She heads back to her old training ground. Kato is there, and he says that he'll be there for her final trial, and he will call her name for all to hear. After this, Augusta recalls a tale of a legendary warrior, a warrior who would always fuse their opponent's swords with their own after victory. So she decided to tread the same path, which is why her weapon looks like that. She uses her forte to fuse all the swords she's collected over the battles. Anyways, the day of the final trial arrives, and everyone is eagerly awaiting to see how the strength of a human might rival the might of Arsinosa. During this rough battle, Augusta was getting tossed around like a rag doll until she found an opening. It was a crack in Arsinosa's leg, so she thrusts her blade into it, and golden blood spilled out into the arena. Arsinosa bowed its head, offering its blessing, and the crowd offered waves of cheers. Then they all bowed before her, after having defeated countless gladiators, and now Arsinosa, Augusta, was crowned champion without the great Aegon. Under everyone's gaze, glory now bowed at her feet. Nestor concludes his recount of Augusta's past by saying, based off what he's told us, our knowledge of Augusta remains incomplete, and that poetry can only offer a glimpse of the true story. So that's pretty much what we know about her. We'll have to wait until the upcoming patch to learn more about this influential figure that commands glory itself to bow at her feet. Is there anything that you find that sticks out about Augusta that I didn't mention? Let me know in the comments. That is all I have for you guys today. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that bell so you don't miss out when I come back with even more breakdowns and more game analysis videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll catch you in the waves. Peace.